Hey geeks, I have a short box of comics I've read and then some, and it represents all the comics I've read so far this year. At the time of this video, it is the 18th of August in the year of our Lord 2025. And I've been reading my comics and then putting them into their own separate box or category of comics that I've read. So I have other short boxes that are marked as comics I haven't read. And those tend to be things like back issues that I've been collecting, and other miscellaneous graphic novels and trade paperbacks and omnibuses, stuff you've seen on the channel before. Um, I'm just trying to do a better job of my system lately has been basically comics I've read and comics I haven't read. And then there are there is a box for comics that are imminently going to be read. And those are pretty much like, your current titles, your weekly, your Wednesday weekly new comics, that are coming out, like Absolute Batman and Absolute Wonder Woman and like, Godzilla destroys the Marvel universe or what have you. So I have that box, which is kind of like my, stuff that I'm gonna read like very soon, and then those are good, So that's a mixture of it's mostly new comics, but there are like older comics in that box. Those could be things like certain older collectible issues I picked up, or like the Detective Comics run by Ram V. I've been reading through that series. The Nocturne, I think, is what it's referred to. But I've read the first two trade paperbacks. I've got the third one, and that's in my imminently, you know, to read box. So series that I'm interested in, that I'm trying to read all the way through. Another one is Matt Fraction's Iron Man run. I picked up three Marvel Epic collections for that. The Modern Era Epic collection for Matt Fraction's Iron Man run. So that's three. You know, I guess they're not trade paperbacks, but they're not really omnibuses either. But the uh, the Epic collection from Marvel is pretty cool. DC is doing DC Finest as their label for theirs, and those usually go for like $45 or something like that. Retail, you can usually get them cheaper, either used or marked down. Um, so yeah, I read the first volume, and I'm a volume and a half into that, so I'm halfway through that Matt Fraction run. So that's another one that's like kind of on my radar of what I'm currently reading, but it's collected in those trade paperback epic collection formats, um, and that's in that box too, you know. So and then I have like the older stuff. I have boxes of comics that are from the 80s, like 79, 80, 81, 82, that literally have not been taken out and read or touched since that period of time. Not There's only a fraction of them that I've pulled out here and there over time. Um, and then more recent, going back say like 5 years since the beginning of COVID, when I really started getting back into comics and collecting them, I have those are all broken into a bunch of short boxes, and some of those I've read, and a lot of them I haven't. That's just those are my boxes where I was just kind of playing catch up to to getting back into collecting. Then I've got my bookshelves filled with all of the omnibuses and the hardcover collected editions and trade paperbacks, um, and I've seen, I've posted some photos of those. There's now I'm getting into compendiums. Um, a few videos back, I did the compendium mania that had the three compendiums for JSA Compendium One, Injustice, and I think GI Joe. So I showed off those three compendiums. I have other compendiums. I'm going to make another compendium video coming up. This well, I'm going to keep this one a secret because it's huge. That it's going to be three more compendiums that I'm going to show off, but they're just one of them is just it's just huge. But I like this compendium format. They're thick. You can build a house out of them, but they're not as unwieldy as like the omnibuses. But the advantage you get with the omnibuses, the big hardcover ones, is the page size is larger, so you get a real good appreciation of the art with an omnibus, whereas your compendium is pretty much the size of the original comic book format. And they tend to be a little bit lighter in weight than the big hardcover omnibuses. The big hardcover omnibuses are like, they weigh as much as like a Volkswagen. And the the new compendium craze that's going on, those are basically like binded comic books essentially, which is cool. So in the case of like that GI Joe one, it's on newsprint. I think it's a little bit better quality of newsprint than from back in the 80s, but it's a light book even though it's like this thick, so um, so anyway, where am I going with all this? Where I'm going with it is, I've got this is part of the stack of books I've read so far this year. Oh yeah, so this is the Matt Fraction Iron Man that I was talking about. This is actually volume 3, but this is where the Fraction run begins, 2008 2009. So I started reading this in trade paperback form. I think I got the first two used somewhere, but when I saw that these came out, it was just a quicker way to get access to all of those issues. Um, and this this run is pretty much what was the inspiration for the majority of the Iron Man movies from Marvel. So there's a lot of plot lines and themes and story arcs in this run that made its way into the scripts of the Iron Man movies. So what you find in here is like the advent of Pepper Potts getting her own Iron Man suit and becoming kind of a superhero, um, which doesn't really happen until Iron Man 3. I kind of like the sort of realistic um, artwork in this run. It's there's a certain realism to it that started, I think, really. It really kind of started in the European comics, but it didn't really have an effect, I think, in the American comics until the modern era began, and you started seeing more of this type of sort of realism in the artwork. And this also sort of really gets into the Tony Stark aspect of his womanizing persona, but also how he's trying to balance that with his increasing attraction to Pepper Potts and her attraction to him. And he actually has a little dalliance with Maria Hill because this picks up where he's in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D. But then Norman Osborn pretty much takes over the world with Hammer as an outcome of what is it, the Kree secret invasion. Um, and so the ramifications of that big Marvel event pop up in this actually not so much in this volume 3, but in volume 4 that becomes a situation. He even breaks out the old Iron Man suit. Then we have Maria Hill. There's a little side plot where she gets tangled up with the controller. I wasn't really sure what the point of that was, other than it just kind of upped the stakes for her character in terms of just trying to accomplish certain missions for Tony Stark, so they could fight back against Norman Osborn and Hammer. Um, so I think you could look at this as sort of the this period of Iron Man. I think you could look at it as sort of the remaking of his character in the comics. You can look at it as sort of the modern, modern meaning our present day reality, you know, to put a modern day present reality type of spin on Tony Stark and Iron Man and his surrounding characters. Um, within the framework of, I mean, the continuity is, of course, always just weird with comics because Iron Man's been around for like 60 years now, I think. Um, and nobody seems to age, and there's all various ways that the comic companies have tried to address that sort of thing, but this is to put a modern spin on it for people, that say just are like in their teen years. Let's say you were like 11, 12, 13 in 2008 when this run began, and you haven't read all those issues with Don Heck and Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, back in the 60s and 70s, um, or maybe even the 80s and 90s. So this is sort of a good remaking of the character and a jumping on point. And I think it was a fortuitous timing because so much of this, coming out 2008, 2009, winds up making its way into the first Iron Man movie, which came out in 2008, 2009. So around that same period of time. And so I think, there was that people were reading these comics or seeing the movies, and they were saying, "Oh yeah, this kind of thing happened in the comic books." And so I think it deepened the connection with that audience at the time. And then of course, that just spurred into the MCU, which is became like this huge success for a good decade at least. So I read that this year. Another one was Spawn Godslayer. I did a community post about this. The artwork in this is amazing. It's a shame that this book got canceled. This is really the first Spawn comic I've ever like read. I never read like the other, the regular Spawn comics. Um, so this is kind of an Elseworld, I guess, to Spawn, but it's sword and sorcery, magic, and mythological mythological gods, and they don't really, it's a shame that this was canceled because it was really good. They never really had time to develop the reason for Spawn to be the way he is, but I guess it has some similarity to Spawn proper, I guess we would call it. Which, the first Spawn comics came out what, like in the early 90s? Let's see here. This was recent too. I mean, this came out in the last year or so. This first issue is this first issue is probably the best issue in terms of the artwork. That's why I'm showing so much of it. Yeah, it's a shame it got canceled. However, all is not lost. As I understand it, there's a Spawn medieval book coming out in October that looks similar to this. Um, so they're not giving up on the sword and sorcery angle of Spawn just yet. There is Spawn Gunslinger currently out. I haven't read that. Yeah, there's some. That's almost classicism fine art right there. It basically is actually. Yeah, I highly recommend this out. It's a shame it got canceled, but and McFarlane, man, give the guy props. 16.99 this book retails for. If this were a Marvel or DC book, it would probably be 24.99, maybe even 29.99. All right, what else have I read? What have I read? Fantastic Four fanfare number one. Um, this is really just kind of like an anthology book for Fantastic Four. So there's like usually four different stories in it. It was good though. It was entertaining. It's a different artist, different. The fanfare format. If you're familiar with that, which started in the '80s with Marvel, it's like they would take like one character and bring in like really top notch artists and writers, and so the whole idea is like let's just bring like our quality A-listers into this book. Same concept here, I think, and they're just but they'll just do a story for each one of the characters. Godzilla versus Thor. Um, I showed this in a previous video. Good book. Good book. I liked it. I liked it better than the Immortal Thor, where Thor dies. I guess I don't know. I guess he's back now, but he's not Thor. He's the Doctor character. I can't remember his name, which is ridiculous because I just read that character in Iron Man last night. Um, so they're basically rebooting his character. The new Godzilla book, issue number one, the new IDW Godzilla book. The it was okay. The premise here is that there are kind of like augmented sort of not superheroes now in the Godzilla universe, but they're able to sort of withstand attacks from Godzilla. So they're on G team and they're gonna fight the kaiju. They're gonna fight Godzilla. What's this? New Gods number 8. This book is really good. I've really been enjoying this new iteration of New Gods, and this cover, I love it. You got Big Barda on the cover. Excellent variant cover. I think this is, I don't know, variant B or something like that. This could easily have been, in my opinion, a higher priced variant cover, but it was just only $4.99. I think this is a $3.99 book though, which is actually a pretty good price for the quality of this book. It's written again by Ram V. This guy, is it Jonathan Cagle on the art? There's actually two artists on the book. There's typically an artist who will do the first 2 or 3 pages, and then an artist that'll do the rest of the story. Yeah, really enjoying the New Gods. And this is issue number 7. So the Justice League are involved in this storyline. Really, with All In, everything's kind of revolving around Justice League Unlimited. in that new She book that came out. I'm not sure what's going on with this title. I thought this was kind of I thought it was a continuation of the She story, but it seems like it's not. I don't see that there's an issue two coming out, or there's another She book coming out, but it doesn't look like it's related to this one, so I'm not entirely sure. When I find out, I'll let you know. Issue number two of Fantastic Four fanfare. Again, continuing that anthology format. Let's see, Jonathan Hickman has a story in here. So there's really no continuing plot lines in the fanfare book. They're basically just capitalizing on the movie. Cloaked, issue one of four from Dark Horse Comics. So this is a back issue. This is not a current thing on sale right now. I think this goes back to 2005 or something like that. I got this for $1, and I found it in the dollar bin. I got it because it looked interesting. This is basically it's kind of a Batman parody, is what it is. This dude here is supposed to be like Batman. This is supposed to be like Robin, and they're trying to figure out like who they are. It's kind of told in flashback, and it turns out that the I forget what they call them, like dark dark wing or something, dark cloak or something. But it turns out that he disappears for like 4 or 5 years, like they're fighting crime, and then they kind of disappear, and then some reporter tracks him down, and he's like, "Oh, it was all a ruse. Like we were hired to play, this role, even though we were fighting crime. Like somebody was paying us." And he's like, "I don't even know who this kid is really. Like I didn't take him under my wing. So it's kind of deconstructing Batman. That is kind of interesting. So if I find the other three issues, though, I'll check it out. I got this on Superman Day, the Jimmy Olsen Super Cyclopedia. It's just kind of it's a promo comic. It is like just a few pages. It's kind of a history of Superman. It's written for kids. Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon Nemesis, issue number one. Um, I think this is supposed to run 4 issues. So if you've ever seen Rebel Moon, and I've spoken about that movie a couple of times on this channel, uh, the Nemesis character, who was one of the better characters in those movies, sadly, she was killed off needlessly, in my opinion. This is kind of her backstory. This was actually pretty good. I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was. So sort of the Rebel Moon franchise, boy, they're still Snyder and Netflix. They're still scratching and clawing to make it a thing. So I'll be picking up, the other issues when they come out. I thought it was pretty good. Um, because they don't they do a little bit of her backstory in the movies. It's kind of like it's a revenge thing. Was a mother, husband, children. The the baddies come. The Galactic Empire or whatever the hell they're called, and they raid her world, and you know she was just like a simple farmer. They were living a simple life. Superman Unlimited, issue number two, Man of Steel, World of Kryptonite. So I, I'm I've been collecting this book. I think they're up to issue number four now. I've read issue number one and two. I think I did. I might have read issue number three. If it is, it's in this pile. But um, it's okay. I don't know exactly why this book exists, though. To be honest with you, and I'm not certain. It's not a reboot of Superman. It's almost like maybe an Elseworld of Superman. That This is kind of my problem with what DC and Marvel do. Even if the books are good, but you have so many X-Men books, you have so many Batman books, you have so many Superman books. It's like you get, this is it's part of All In, but where does it fit? I mean, Superman is in World's Finest with Batman. Then he's in Superman. Now he's in Superman Unlimited, and then he's in Justice League Unlimited, and then he's in Action Comics. And I'm not entirely certain if this actually fits into the All In continuity. I mean, I guess it does because it has the All In stamp on it, but it's kind of like a reboot of his character. You know, it's really bizarre. Issue number one of Peacemaker presents The Vigilante Eagly double feature. Um, this is basically James Gunn written all over it. It's so if you watch the Peacemaker season one show, that's what this book is like. Um, which I liked the show. I liked season one, but I prefer my Peacemaker in the comics to be more like the John Ostrander era, um, with Checkmate and early Suicide Squad and even like the Peacemaker going. So if you look at DC Finest Peacemaker, um, those stories, because when he was with Charlton, he was kind of more of a James Bond ripoff. He's kind of this suave character with his palatial mansion in Switzerland and his he had his flying jet and his jetpack, and he wasn't like messed up in the head like he is now. They didn't bring that aspect of Peacemaker with his horrible father and all of his mental issues until that didn't appear until like the 80s, as he kind of appeared in a lot of these different comic books. And Gunn has taken that and sort of turned it to 11. So they've kept a bunch of like the psychological issues with him. Um, but they've also just kind of brought in essentially, I mean, frankly, they just kind of made it raunch. They just added this raunchy aspect to it, and it's played for laughs. So I think that kind of works well on screen. But it's like you're just trying to sort of ape The Boys, on Prime Video, and those types of shows, like to me, like they wear out their welcome quickly. You know because now you're in a death spiral of trying to top yourself with more and more shocking content. Yeah, every season, like just how much crazier can we make it this year? And then it starts to take away from the story. Like that's what happened to The Boys. Like who fucking cares about the story anymore? It's like what shock value moments can we just throw at the audience? Back the story gets lost, and that's probably what's going to happen to Peacemaker, and that's one of the reasons I didn't like Creature Commandos either. So that's my paradox with James Gunn. James Gunn is best when he does things like Guardians of the Galaxy and the Superman movie, which I think just about everybody agrees, except for certain YouTubers, that was a great film. It's awesome. Kind of restores the Superman that everybody wants and prefers, although I still love Zack Snyder and Henry Cavill's Superman. But anyway, but he'll do like, these, just sort of like shock value, type of properties. And I don't get it. I don't get it. It wears thin after a while. It's just my opinion. Godzilla versus Avengers number one. It was. Actually, this was probably the weakest of the series. There's Godzilla versus Fantastic Four, which was good. Godzilla versus Hulk, that was good. Godzilla versus Spider Man, that was good. This one was the art was house style, um, and the story was just kind of like they kind of played it for laughs a little bit, which they have been doing in the Godzilla versus books, except for the Godzilla versus Thor. Like they played that shit serious. That was the best one of the books. Issue number one of the OMAC project. So I'm on record as trying to collect like all appearances of OMAC. Um, and then I so thumbing through the back issues, I didn't know this, but apparently there were like two OMAC projects. There's this one with Greg Rucka, which I have not completed this. I There's the other one that came after this one. Um, I think that Batman featured heavily in that. I do have that one. That was like four or six. I think that was six issues, and there's a trade paperback for it. So this one, um, Batman is not involved in this one, at least not yet. This is more of a Justice League situation, I think, if I remember correctly. The OMAC satellite crashes, and so a special team of C and D listers is sent out to collect what they can of the technology on behalf of, I think, the United States military. And it's the president and Amanda Waller. They're like, we need to get some assets on the ground because we need that OMAC brother eye technology. So that's what they do. But somebody else gets there first, and so it turns into a real situation. Turns into an international incident. And then, of course, the OMACs, because OMAC is a collective now. He's not the OMAC with the cool mohawk, not the Jack Kirby OMAC anymore, not the Buddy Blank, but it's the OMAC bots or whatever they're called. They pop out of the satellite, try to defend their territory, and I think some other faction shows up for this dogfight. Um, so it was pretty cool though. I want to get the other ones in this collection. I don't know how many issues this ran for. Um, yeah, it doesn't say one of. It's just this is issue number one. But I think this definitely it went for four issues. It might have gone for six issues. Yeah, here we have Green Lantern and Batman discussing the implications of it, and so they end up their Justice League's viewpoint was is that they need to destroy it. They don't want the technology to fall in the hands of other people. So yeah, I got to research this some more and see what exactly the OMAC situation is because there's a couple of miniseries. They should, and I suspect OMAC is going to play an issue in the All In saga. I think maybe he did play or it did play an issue in the Absolute Power situation. I only read the Absolute Power special, which was good, which kind of set up the whole All In and Absolute, yeah, titles. It's another back issue, The Establishment, issue number one, um, from Wildstorm Comics. I've been kind of getting into some of these Wildstorm comics when I come across them, especially like the Ultraverse. But I'd never heard of this before. This is more of a like a spy, English spy type drama, but I'm sure that it's set within a superhero type universe. I don't know enough about Wildstorm to know if it was its own continuity. I think it may have been, but then again, now I think about it, I think it was just it's a DC offshoot, like Vertigo and so forth. I don't know what its primary goals and objectives were as a publishing entity, but this is more of an intrigue comic book. and I found it with, I don't know, four or five other issues. Some of them were in order, some of them were missing. Um, and they, this was in the dollar box. So I liked it though. I mean, I liked it enough that I'll read the other issues that I bought. At some point, I'll probably try to piece them all together. Rivals Ignite issue number one. This is a one shot. You got a Peach Momoko cover here. Um, yeah, this is a really. I mean, it's Peach Momoko. I mean, if you like her art style, which I mean, I don't know why anyone wouldn't like her art style, but um, this is it one continuous story? I think it's a couple of different stories. So my understanding of this Rivals Ignite, or this just the Rivals title, these one shots that Marvel keeps putting out, they're not all Peach Momoko art and story apparently, because there's another one out now, but it's not her. She's not in it. Um, but it's based on a video game franchise, if I understand it correctly. So these comic books are basically there to back up, that franchise with the video games. And but there is a continuity to this story. It, I thought it came out of the Demon Days work, but I think that might be a different continuity. I'm not sure. Marvel doesn't do a lot to promote these books, in my opinion, and they should because Peach Momoko is awesome. But in this one, we have the antagonist is the Venom symbiote. But this is set like in feudal Japan, you know. So we've got this, pretty awesome manga style from Peach Momoko. And then there's another artist, Yuji Kaku, um, who does another story in here. This was also pretty cool. It's kind of doing this color manga style. This one has limited color, which is which is nice. You just have just basically white, black, and this sort of light shade of purple in it. Really awesome artwork, though. Just excellent penmanship. Then, is there a third story? Yes, there is a third story. This one is by Mitsuyasu Sakai. Wrote the story. The art is by Reisei Yamada. Again, similar situation with the color. Limited color palette, which I think is effective for this type of artwork, and it adds to the overall look of the book too. And I think somebody at Marvel made the right decision to they made a conscious decision to limit the color palette so that the line art really sticks out between these three artists. And with Peach Momoko, the watercolor. Yeah, so cool book. Cool book. I was hoping they were going to do another one with more of her art, but she's not in the new one that's out. I'm pretty sure I have the Demon Days trade paperback. Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong, sequel two. Is this issue number two? Yeah, this is better than the first series. Suicide Squad is involved. You can see them down there. Mr. Freeze, or what do they call that guy? Not Mr. Freeze, but Ice Pick or whatever. Peacemaker, Harley Quinn, Captain Boomerang. I forget who the other flying lady is. But yeah, this is more interesting than the first one. Justice League is in it. It picks up pretty much, I think, about a year, maybe 2 years where the other one left off. This is a basic. This is an Elseworlds, type thing. Um, in the first one, there was a big, showdown between Superman and Godzilla, and the issue that's coming out here, I think, before the end of this month, will be a rematch of that fight. This was issue number one of it. So as crossover books go, which are kind of gimmicky, but I've been kind of you know I've been sucked into buying them and reading them. they they're not. I wouldn't say they're hit or miss. They've mostly been good, with the Marvel and DC stuff. But I always look through them thoroughly. I don't just buy them blindly, because some of them are like, now that Avengers versus Aliens, or Aliens versus Avengers, those four issues written by Jonathan Hickman, I have those in my to read imminently box. That trade paperback I think just came out as well. Those look spectacular, and I've heard other people on the net talk about how good that book is. So I'll probably read that here imminently. And then there is a Predator versus the Marvel Universe issue number one just came out, like literally last week. I've got that. I thumbed through it. The artwork looked pretty cool. When I thumb through books that I didn't necessarily have on my list, the first thing I look at is the art. If the art is interesting and it's not like the typical house style that DC and Marvel do, which if you what I've noticed is the Marvel and DC house style are the same now. Which back in the day, it used to be like the DC house style was sort of like Carmen Infantino, and the Marvel house style was sort of this transmorgification of Kirby and Buscema. No, over the years that sort of changed, but in the early, in the 60s and 70s, that's pretty much what it was. So they were different. They were different. But with what's going on now, I don't like the house style for either one of these companies. In fact, and it's been going on for maybe a couple of decades. It's just boring art. Sometimes the layouts and the coloring can sort of save it, but the line work just sucks, man. There's just no power to it at all. And I swear, if I see one more like little cut and paste to like bing effect when someone's like punching Godzilla or whatever, and that's it. Like, come on, man. That shit's lazy. You know. In fact, let's see if we can find an example of that. And it's not just these books. It's just a lot of them have that. Let's see. I mean, it's like front and center, like in everybody's Adobe Photoshop toolkit or something. Oh, well, see, I'm looking at the wrong book because the artwork in this is actually a pretty decent. So I'll have to look at it in the first one, in the first Godzilla versus Kong versus Justice League. It was in there a lot, and like I said, it's in a lot of comic books now. This is that new Valiant Beyond Bloodshot number one. Um, they have like three or four variant covers, and they didn't charge extra for them. This one has like none of the title or anything on it. It was just straight up just a cover. It's a wraparound cover too. Um, the story was, I actually don't. I have some of the Bloodshot collected stuff from like the 2012, 2014, 15 era. Some I've got those collected. I haven't read them yet. That's when I was on my Valiant kick. I still am, but I was more reading through all the um, Exo Mano War comics, which is also so all the Valiant stuff's getting rebooted. So and this is the beginning of that. So this is basically it's kind of like Blade, really. It's vampires. It's one of those comic books. It's not you're not going to get any you're not going to get like a lot of deep philosophy out of that book. It's just it's guns, guts, and glory. So but it's supposed to kick off the new Valiant universe. So this was good. I did a post about this Red Hulk. This was good. I really liked this. Um, this makes me. I haven't been a big reader of Red Hulk. This one makes me want to go back to the Jeff Loeb era where Red Hulk began on those Hulk issues and read through those. Um, but what I liked about this is that the narration was all Thunderbolt Ross, who is Red Hulk, and it starts out where he's running through a scenario where he would essentially, take down a jet airliner. And when you're reading it, at first you think it's like it's the story. So like for me, like not knowing a whole lot about Red Hulk other than what I've seen in the movie, and then I was like, is Red Hulk like that bad? Is he like is he the type of character that would just like get Red Hulk in a jetliner and like take down the whole thing, kill everybody? And so he's walking through this scenario, and he basically just destroys the plane. But it turns out what he's actually doing is just giving it as a scenario narration to Doctor Doom, who has him imprisoned. And they've got this nullifier on him that keeps him from turning into Red Hulk. Of course, there's always the nullifier. There's Doctor Doom, and then so he gets a little smarty pants with Doom, and Doom starts to toss him around the cell like a play doll. And so that's when Ross is like, "Okay, I've had enough of this captivity crap." So he goes through this narration of how he begins to plot his escape, and what he discovers is he's held in this prison with other superheroes. One of them being Deathlock, the other one being Machine Man. And I love me some Deathlock and Machine Man. So yeah, they plot their escape. They they're able to once they break out, they have to fight an army of Doom bots, and the writing from Ross's viewpoint is rock solid. Good book because it starts with action. There's action in the middle, there's action in the end, but there's this sort of cerebral inner dialogue with Ross that weaves it together. And now that's what makes a good comic book. Artwork was pretty good, you know. Actually, the artwork was quite good, and the artwork in the series has been quite good. And I've read up to the current issue now, which I think issue 6 or 7 is the current issue. Um, I think this is probably one of my favorite comic books going right now. And I haven't really been paying attention to this whole, one world under doom thing. Um, this is probably the most into that whole event that I've gotten. And because all the other Marvel stuff I've been reading is actually outside of the Doom, event arc. It's all this, versus Godzilla versus Predator versus Alien. It's, it's all been sort of the Disney cash cow stuff. Um, but it's good. Every issue has really there's it's that it reminds me of the 70s and 80s. There's action, there's quick moral dilemmas, there's a little bit of character building, there's grandiose, verbose, bombastic dialogue. Uh, there's against all the odds types of situations. Reading it even got me. There was enough exposition in it to get me kind of clued in as to what exactly one world under doom means. Because when Ross breaks out, like none of them know, first of all, while why they were even in this prison. Like all they knew is that Doom had imprisoned them in Latveria, but they didn't know that he took over the world. It isn't until they break out and like get on the internet that they're like, oh man, Victor Von Doom took over the world. Like, how did that happen? You know, so the reader is along for the ride. Um, and so you get enough of that back matter to understand. Oh, okay, this is how. So I don't have to go and read all those other Doom books to see, to figure out what happened. Um, yeah, even the covers have been pretty good on this book, and that's really. I ignored this book for months, but the covers were kind of drawing my eye to it, and finally, I just picked up like issue number 6, and I thumbed through it, and I was like, I wonder if my LCS has all these back issues, and they did. So I just grabbed the whole run, and I'm glad that I did because this is, like I said, I think right now this is probably my favorite current modern comic that's coming out. Yeah, this is issue number 6. This cover right here, this is the one that snagged me. This just came out a couple of weeks ago. This is the one where I was like, okay, damn it, I gotta see what this book is about. I've got to get further into this book and see what the hell this is about. This is just you've seen covers like this before, but this is just like the Peacemaker show is doing like it's Peacemaker and Eagly with their foreheads together. It's it's so it's. Let's see if it's on this one. I love that cover though with Peacemaker and Eagly. It's so it's so ridiculous. Let's see if it's not on the back of this issue of DC. But let's look at this. This is Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong 2. Now this is issue number 3. I think this is the most recent one that came out. So you got Randall Flagg and Lex Luthor have to work together as part of Argus, who was being run by Amanda Waller. I'm I'm just going to leave it at that. And so yeah, you've got Suicide Squad X is back in action. Now in the last series, it was the Legion of Doom that was messing around with the kaiju because there's of course it's like there's some genetic property in Godzilla and Kong that makes can grow. It's like a super growth hormone, turn you into a kaiju. So what do? They give it to um, Sharkman. What's his name? No, they give it to Killer Croc, and he gets large sized, and he's like, I think he's like even fighting with Godzilla at some point, which is funny because in the Marvel ones with Godzilla, who is he fighting but Fin Fang Foom, which is ridiculous. Um, so yeah, so when they give it to Killer Croc, and Killer Croc is like the size of 15 city blocks, that's when the Justice League is like, oh hell no. So yeah, they're back on Monster Island now, or Skull. I think they're on Skull Island, and they're having to deal with both Kong and Godzilla and Suicide Squad, who are not acting in the best interests of anybody. Yeah, this sets up the rematch between Superman and Godzilla. So in the first one, Superman was sort of like not feeling his best because he was exposed to kryptonite. Or yeah, yeah. But in this one, he's not up to full power because they're in. It's not. I guess it's not Kong Island, but what do they call it? It's Monster World. It's the Middle Earth. It's the Earth beneath our feet. It's so Hollow Earth. That's what they call it, right? Right? Hollow Earth. That's where the Titans, the monsters, reside. So he doesn't get natural sunlight down there. So that's a problem for Superman. Issue number one of Savage Wolverine. Um, this book was okay. It's just a one shot, from my understanding. It's kind of a body horror thing, small town body horror thing that Logan just kind of sort of stumbles into. You know, he's just looking to buy a six pack, riding his motorcycle, and he gets mixed up in some small town hijinks with some dude who's apparently like basically mutated the whole town so that they all sort of look and act like John Carpenter's The Thing. And I think this just came out last Wednesday, or maybe the Wednesday before that. Not bad, not bad. It was entertaining. Perch says it's comics that don't matter, though, which, I mean, I kind of get that viewpoint. This is not something that's going to contribute to the overall Marvel comic story arc, such as it is, but I don't know. That's so what? I mean, one shots. That's why they call them one shots. It's entertaining. It's an entertaining. It's a document of entertaining. Yeah, 6.99, but it's almost a double sized comic. I think there's 30, 35, 36 pages in it. It doesn't need to. Not all of them need to have a philosophical weight to them, and they don't need to contribute to the overall arc. Like this has nothing to do with One World Under Doom, obviously. It's post Fall of Krakoa, which honestly, I don't even know what the hell that is. Wasn't Krakoa like where that big volcano blew up? Like I totally was clued out of the whole X Men Krakoa era. I haven't really been into X Men. Shoot me if you want, but I haven't really been into X Men since like Chris Claremont. 1988, 89. That's pretty much where my involvement ends. Um, I would go back and read. I mean, I'm going to read X Factor. I have that on my to do list. But yeah, I've said this before. Like it just even back then, all these X books just exploded, especially in the '90s, and it's continued to this day. And it's just become so. I don't know. To me, it's just a mess, and it's watered down. And I'm kind of pivoted back more towards being interested in what's going on with Fantastic Four. That's it. Like I'm not even buying the Avengers book. I'm with Marvel. Yeah, I'm just kind of buying these Godzilla, Predator, Aliens books. I don't know. I'm looking for a jumping on point. I might get that new Captain America issue 1 and 2. That looks decent. I might check that out. But yeah, that's about where I am with Marvel. Flash Gordon Quarterly. Um, So Mad Cave is doing a really good job. I like Defenders of the Earth. I like Flash Gordon, although I got to catch up on the Flash Gordon issues. But this is essentially this is like a little anthology of the Flash Gordon universe. Maybe I don't know what they refer to it as, but it's this universe. You've got Flash Gordon, you've got Phantom Stranger, you've got Lothar, you've got Mandrake the Magician, you got Dale Arden, you got Ming the Merciless, and his family, you know. So and Dr. Zarkov. This one, there's a really good story in here with Dr. Zarkov and this robot. It's where he's in prison and he sort of befriends these robots that have been repurposed as security guards, but they're really like robots that were meant to like do underground mining and heavy lifting, and they're work bots. But he sort of cracks into its AI and starts to like repurpose it to aid in his escape, because Flash Gordon and Dale Arden are coming to rescue him. So there's still a lot of holes in this overall galactic war, I guess, that they had with Mongo, because the Defenders of the Universe, or Defenders of the Earth, pretty much takes place after the Great War with Mongo. Um, And there's but some of these stories I think happened during that war or even before it. So I'm not, I'm sure there'll be an omnibus at some point to stitch all this together. But no, this was a good book. Generally, the Flash Gordon stuff, I'm digging it. Absolute Batman #10. Uh, this is Bane, the first appearance of Bane in the Absolute Batman universe. Actually, I was incorrect. #9 is the first appearance of Bane. Yeah, these two issues are good. These two issues are good. Bruce has to escape from a facility that is guarded by Bane, but other operatives as well. It's basically a prison facility, and they're doing genetic experiments under Gotham on people, and they're trying to do the experiment on Bruce. Actually, they think they do, and they're trying to turn him into another Bane or something like that. Um, and just these two issues really get into like the willpower of Bruce Wayne, Batman, in this absolute universe, because he has to essentially really steel his mind against the torture and experiments that they're doing on him, and he keeps escaping, but Bane comes and beats him down again. And eventually, he has to find different ways to try to get out of this trap. Um, so a little similar to what Ross did with Red Hulk in that first issue. Although in that he had help with the other heroes that were locked up. In this, like Bruce Wayne has no help. So yeah, they try to break him down mentally, and but he being Bruce Wayne, like he starts to turn the tables on them with his own dark psychology. So I don't know. They don't really get into yet how Bruce Wayne trained himself or was trained to be Batman in Absolute Batman yet. So there's no Ra's al Ghul yet. He's present. They definitely make reference of him, but he hasn't appeared yet or anything like that. This is issue #8. Love this cover. So this was the Mr. Freeze. Mr. Freeze appears on a couple of issues, and he ain't the Mr. Freeze we're all familiar with. He's messed up. He looks like Slender Man, uh, who came out of your freezer. The Black Hole, issue #2. So this was interesting. I am I'm a fan of the Black Hole movie. When I was a kid, I thought it was like just very intriguing. And if you remember, if you've seen the black hole, everybody goes into the black hole at the end. They don't want to, but they do. And so this issue #2 is the second half of the movie adaptation. And indeed, they do go into the black hole. What is interesting about this, though, in the film, um, they kind of leave the door open. I don't know. I don't know if they ever. I don't think they ever had a sequel in mind for it. But they go through the black hole and they come out the other side, and they live because the anti-grav technology or whatever that Dr. What was his name? Dr. Maximilian had built. No, Maximilian was the robot. Dr. Reinhardt. Yeah, Dr. Reinhardt. So Dr. Reinhardt is crazy. He's a nut job, and he wants to steer his giant ship into the black hole. And he's developed some sort of technology that he thinks is going to protect the ship. It's going to repel the gravitronic forces of the black hole from crushing them into nothingness. And that breaks, so the ship starts to get torn apart. And the heroes who docked with the ship, the crew of the Palomino, have to get off the ship as it's going into the black hole. And they have to fight his robots, but turns out they're not really robots. So they have to fight them, laser battles. That's the Star Wars element to get back to their ship. They can't do that, so they have to take sort of like this escape pod type ship. So they get off the ship, but it's too late. They can't escape the gravity. They go into the black hole. I guess the same technology, um, you know, extended to their ship, to the small ship, the escape pod, and they go into the hole. They come out the other side. Now, when they're traveling through the black hole, they, they have in the film they do some sort of like stop motion, echoey, weird kind of special effect that it has some kind of an effect on their mind and so forth. But when they come out the other side, they're normal, but they're like on the other side of the universe. I don't know where they're at. And meanwhile, Dr. Reinhardt, you know, who is in the big mothership, it goes in and he ends up he ends up dying, but basically they show him he goes to hell, like literally goes to hell. The ending is actually somewhat controversial in this movie. There they are. They come out the other side. So, but what you see is next issue, Beyond the Black Hole. So, if you were clamoring for a sequel to the film The Black Hole, issues 3 and 4 of this comic book are that's your homeboy right there. So somebody at Whitman was like, well, let's continue the story of these 4 characters, 3 people and a robot on the other side of the universe. Let's see if we can make this a continuing series, which as a child, I always hoped that would happen. But I didn't know about this until I bought this issue and saw. So of course I looked it up, and sure enough, there's an issue 3 and 4 of the Black Hole, and one of them is relatively affordable. I think like 10, $15. Issue number 3. Issue number 4 though apparently is very hard to find, and it's like $70. And there's so I don't know if there was limited, printing of that issue. There's like a Spanish version or a Portuguese version of that issue that you'll find on eBay and so forth. So and then it just went away. It was canceled, But yeah, I just out of being a fan of the movie, out of curiosity, I would love to read those 2 issues. I wonder if they're pirated online. I don't read pirated comics as a rule, but those would be interesting to take a look at just to see, what the what story ideas the creators came up with to sequelize the black hole, because I've always felt like when you have a story where someone goes into a black hole, usually that's where the story ends, right? That's it. You're not even light can escape these gravitational forces. Like you're spaghettied from the gravity. You're like, yeah, you're turned into 1,000 pieces of string. The only thing that might be left of you is your consciousness. So not to get too metaphysical here, but metaphysically speaking, maybe your consciousness just gets blown out the other side of it. I don't know. We don't know what happens in a black hole. We don't know for sure. You know, Not a lot of movies have tackled that. Interstellar did. You know, so I always wondered, yeah, like if you could survive it. The theory is that they actually just spit out on the other side of this universe or some other universe. So little did we know, in the early 80s, Whitman Comics tackled that big, weighty philosophical question. Nightwing, issue number 1, annual. I have not been reading the current Nightwing comics. But I picked up this annual just to see what's going on, see if it was a starting point for it. and I liked it. I liked it. Not enough for me to start reading Nightwing on an ongoing basis, but I don't know. We'll see. It's just, I think I don't know what issue Nightwing is, but it's like issue 20 something, the current iteration of it. So I'm just not, you know, I'm just too late to the party on it. The Thing number three. This was the book I was trying to think of. Like, what am I reading of Marvel that's like, not like kaiju oriented? And this is the book. I've got issues one, two, and three of this. And this is a really entertaining book. It's essentially like, you ever seen that movie, The Warriors? That's what this is like, except it's with the Thing. And the thing has been caught up in some New York City intrigue, uh, being run by the Kingpin. And so the Kingpin doesn't like the Thing meddling in his affairs, so he sent basically a bunch of assassins after the Thing, a bunch of super assassins. And he has to go save the daughter, a little girl, the daughter of a friend, or not really a friend of his, but a schoolmate from back in the day before he was the Thing, when he used to be bullied by his school, peers. And this guy comes to him and says, "Hey Ben, my daughter's missing. I'm your old buddy from Yancey Street." And he's like, "Nah, nah, you were a bully to me, but I'm the Thing. I'm a good guy, so I'll try to find her. I'll do what I can." And it's a kind of a simple premise, but that's all you need with the Thing. It's about the Thing. But the mystery is a lot of these villains have superpowers and they shouldn't. So they've got super strength. So they're able to give him a run for his money. Um, because he's thinking, oh, you know, I can clobber these guys. But then they hit him and he goes flying around. So, and Bullseye's great in this. Bullseye's great in everything, really. Um, so yeah, these are fight comics. Almost pretty much every issue is him just tangling with all these thugs. And they sort of push the plot along. It's a limited series, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if they're doing three, four, well, not three. They're doing four, maybe five or six issues because he hasn't worked his way up to Kingpin yet. But it's been entertaining. It's again, this is another one of those comics. I've been reading it, and I'm thinking like this could have been written in the '70s or '80s, no doubt. Issue number one of the Sixth Gun. Yeah, so this turned into a rabbit hole for me. So I've never heard of this series before. I never, didn't know anything about it. It's published by Oni Press. Um, but I thumbed through it and it looked interesting. There was a little synopsis in it. I think that also caught my attention. It's kind of should it? I guess we should say, is it steampunk? But it's kind of set in the Wild West. So yeah, I guess it would be considered a steampunk. It's kind of a steampunk occult monster hunter mashup, actually, is what I would call it. This is something that could probably be set in the Hellboy universe. But there's a lot of characters in it, many of whom that were carried over from the previous series. So there are two previous series to this. Apparently, I forget the name of those series, but they're collected in omnibuses. But like they're like 280 pages. This is sort of a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen without like the characters aren't taken from literary pages though. They're their own characters. Double splash page there. So yeah, it's just this really cool Western steampunk mashup of monster hunting and occult MacGuffins that you got to chase after, and evil villains that are opposed to them, secret society of villains, and it was entertaining as hell. And so, um, reading this first issue, I was like, oh yeah, here's a synopsis. So um, the first two iterations, the first one was the Sixth Gun. The second one was called Six Gun Shadow Roads. Now this one is called the Six Gun Battle for the Six. So in the Six Gun, out of the ruins of the failed Confederate uprising, a race to claim six legendary objects of unfathomable occult power began, thrusting the fate of humanity into the hands of an ordinary young woman and a hard nosed gunslinger who together were our last best hope to forestall Armageddon. Then in Shadow Roads, it says the world is thinnest at the crossroads, a mythical plane that serves as a doorway throughout the universe. It is here that a band of adventurers throughout the Wild West gather, brought together by Gord Cantrell and Abigail Redmayne with a singular purpose to fight back against the creatures that would endanger the sanctity of all creation. That hunting party races against the nefarious Cabal, who wish to claim the immortal weapons and incept a new century of war, genocide, and suffering. The battle for the sixth begins here. So yeah, the Cabal are the villains. That's the they're trying to face off against them, and so it's got like this mixture of there's a little battle here on Easter Island. So yeah, very entertaining, very entertaining. Um, Definitely want to read the previous volumes of it, and I'll be buying these going forward. Good indie comics. Werewolf by Night. I wasn't going to pick this up, but again, I think the artwork caught me, and this was actually pretty good too. Um, this was actually pretty decent. I think it's not necessarily a reboot of Werewolf by Night. Again, he's trapped in a prison, but he finds out that he's got sort of like different capabilities, and it's because the person that imprisoned him is none other than Dracula. And so I think Dracula has injected some of his blood into the werewolf, and so that's given him different abilities. Kind of forgot why he had done that, but he did. Artwork was pretty cool. It was good for this book. I think this is going to be a limited series. Really, aren't they all at this point? Like nothing really goes past 20, 25 issues anymore. But I think this one is going to be 4 or 5 or 6 issues. I'm not sure, but yeah, I got an appearance here at the end by Man Thing. It looks like they're kind of putting a monster squad together. So we'll see where this one goes. But I liked it. I'll be picking these future issues up. Oh, Thy Kingdom Come, Justice Society of America, Volume 3. So I did read Volume 1, 2, and 3. This is essentially the sequel to Kingdom Come. So I'm going to do a separate video on this because it's more involved. Here's another dollar special. Star Trek X Men. Eh, it was it was kind of a snoozer. Interesting concept, interesting crossover, but it was kind of a snoozer. Yeah, I was talking about the Ultraverse. Oh, I was mistaken. So I thought Ultraverse was an offshoot of Wildstorm, but it's not. Ultraverse is in the Malibu comics. So I've started collecting Prototype. I don't really know what the actual beginning of Prototype is, but this is issue number 1. but there's a few, there's a couple of, I don't know, two or three different prototype titles that were out there that came through the Ultraverse. Um, so I started with this one, but reading it, yeah, it's like you already should know the backstory. So I don't think this is the actual origin story comic book. Um, it was pretty good though. I think in the 80s or and 90s, a lot of these sort of Iron Man knockoffs, for lack of a better term, maybe that's too pejorative, but they were really more like RoboCop facsimiles, you know? Yeah, 93 is when this came out. This had more of a RoboCop feel to it. Even though they could fly around in these suits and stuff. Let's see. Tom Mason and Len Straczynski were the writers, artists David Ammerman and James Pascoe. Let's see what's going on. Some kind of monster mayhem. Yeah, this definitely picks up inside of a larger story arc because they just boom drop you in and like it's like you know all these characters, but if you're a new reader, like I don't know what the hell's going on. But yeah, there's usually there's the there's corporations involved that have the technology. There's like reluctant anti-hero who wields the technology. There's greedy corporate sponsors who are like building super soldiers in their competing technologies or genetically modified humans to become monsters. Good like 80s cyber tech, cyberpunk comics. Um, and good, very 90s artwork, very 90s. Dude almost looks like Savage Dragon, squaring off against Temu Iron Man. But it's cool. I dig it. I dig it. I've been collecting these I've got a bunch of these prototype titles in my box of to imminently read comics. So that was the starting point there. Um, oh, this is another dollar comic. Superman, Batman Generations by John Byrne, an imaginary series by John Byrne. The 28th Century, issue 10 of 12. So yeah, I was not familiar with this. I came across it. It's an Elseworlds title, um, but it was pretty cool. Art and story by John Byrne. It made me want to read all 12 issues. I'm sure there's a graphic novel format out there for this. Yeah, this is like in the 28th century. Um, in this Elseworlds, Superman is older. Bruce, I think is I think he's retired from being Batman. So like there's the sort of the Bat family has taken over the mantle. New Genesis has been destroyed. Batman's children, not sure. Yeah, this is or not Superman's children come to greet him. Yeah, this is issue 10, December of 2003. So there's a lot of story I'm missing here. But there's some good panels with Big Barda and Superman. Uh, yeah, Darkseid is up to his old tricks. And now he wants to destroy the 28th century or something like that. Digging the John Byrne artwork in this. Definitely want to read this whole run. So that's what I like about grabbing these dollar comics, because you can find something that's like, I didn't even know this existed. Oh yeah, this is pretty cool. Makes me want to investigate more, potentially collect the entire run of whatever that title is. Titans Annual One. So this is hot off the presses too. So I love the new Teen Titans back in the day. George Perez, Marv Wolfman. But this is, I heard this was a good starting point for Titans readers, new readers now. And it's told from the perspective of Donna Troy. She's basically writing a letter to her estranged father, and kind of catching him up on what's happened in her life, which means also the life of the Teen Titans, now known as the Titans, because they're young adults, or you know I mean, it's only been 40 years, but now they're like in their 30s. So, these people age a lot slower than we do. So yes, it did serve that function. Um, and let's see, a little bit of yeah, it's an annual, so page count I think was up there. Um, did did reading it make me want to get back into reading Titans? Probably not. I don't think so. But it gave me an update as to what's going on. But I just can't read every single comic book that comes out. I've got to I've got to fight my battles. But yeah, she goes through the story of how, like, she was found by Wonder Woman and raised by Wonder Woman, and how she goes about, like, leaving Themyscira and joining up with the Titans. It tells you more about her adopted family history. So it was a decent update as to what's happening with the Titans, but I don't know if I'm going to start reading that. I don't know if I'm going to get into collecting them monthly or not. Probably not. That's more of a book I could see myself just, like, maybe at some point just kind of catching up through trade paperbacks, but I don't know. No, just Titans just don't do it for me right now. You know, I'm more interested in what's going on with Justice League Unlimited. Um, well, we're at an hour and 30 minutes, so that just didn't even get into the box that I have. And what else do we have here? Oh yeah, and we got this stack too. This is actually two long boxes worth. I just need to get the second box put together and put these in there. But yeah, this stack here. This is the We Are Yesterday saga, which weaved between World's Finest and Justice League Unlimited. Long story short on that saga, which I read that through just recently. This just came out. This is the aftermath of the We Are Yesterday saga. I liked this. I liked this book. This was cool. But yeah, it's in Justice League Unlimited. Same book, just the variant cover. Issue number 8. Issue number 8 is part 6 of We Are Yesterday. Issue number 7, we're going backwards through time. World's Finest number 39. Cool variant cover here. World's Finest Annual number 1. We Are Yesterday Part 3. Variant cover of that annual. Pretty cool. With Jon Stewart on that one. JLU number 6. Part 2 of We Are Yesterday. JLU number 5. Technically not part of We Are Yesterday, but obviously it is because you can see the Legion of Doom. They pop in at the end of the issue. JLU number 4. Issues 1 through 4 of JLU are pretty good. I liked them. That was before the Legion of Doom thing showed up. There's a variant cover from issue number 3 of Justice League Unlimited. Foil. See all that reflection there. JLU number 2, another variant cover. This is a wraparound cover. And issue number 1 of Justice League Unlimited. Yeah, so the We Are Yesterday saga, I didn't care for it that much. I hate to say it, but I found it to be confusing. It was very confusing, actually. I mean, it had too much time travel in it. It jumped between, World's Finest and JLU, and the World's Finest Annual. So it kind of messed with the continuity of the books, because there was already an existing arc in issues 1 through 4 of Justice League Unlimited, and this kind of just throws a monkey wrench in it. Now it matters because it's all building up to whatever this arc is with Darkseid's return, which appears to be imminent now, and I think is actually beginning. They're starting to experience the fringes of Darkseid's return right now. I think in the latest issue of JLU, or the latest issue of Superman. I think, what do they call it? The Omega something, the Omega crew or something like that. He's got some heralds now or something going on. So there's going to be at some point there's going to be some kind of crossover between the Absolute universe and the All-In universe, which is DC proper, I guess, DC canon, I suppose. Whereas Absolute is this universe that kind of got spun off from the cosmic event of Darkseid's death. I mean, it's kind of confusing, to be honest with you. It looks cool and the stories were pretty good, but I'm not entirely certain of the physics, to what extent that you can actually have physics that makes sense in a comic book. Yeah. But the We Are Yesterday thing, where they brought back the old school Legion of Doom, it it's mostly about Grodd, which was cool. But even Luther was just kind of like a very secondary character and all that. The other characters were just there. They didn't really have, it's centered on Grodd. I did like that aspect of it, but it was just kind of, I don't know, it was just too choppy. Like if it were a movie, I'd say like they had bad editing. That's one way to describe it. Um, so we'll see where it goes from there. But I think in October is when we're supposed to start seeing some real repercussions of this entire all-in slash absolute, dual universe situation that's happening in all the different DC books. Um, as to when that all comes to a head, I don't know, probably like summer of next year. I do know that Matt Fraction is going to do a Batman book, or he's going to take over Batman, which that's going to be very cool. Like I said earlier in this video, an hour and a half ago, Matt Fraction's run on Iron Man was kind of seminal to the modern era, and I can't wait to see what he does with Batman. I think he's going to be. I mean, Snyder is awesome on Batman, Scott Snyder, but I think Matt Fraction's style of writing and his perspective on things for Batman is going to be very interesting. It's going to be either very cool or it's going to be very mediocre, but I don't see it being mediocre. I think it's going to be very cool. I think it's going to be refreshing, actually. A nice, refreshing take on Batman. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I think that starts in October as well. All right. Was that enough comics for you? I told you there was a ton more comics coming. So in my next episode, I'm actually going to dig into the short box of comics that I've read so far in 2025. That's a lot of comics there so far, but there's even more. Probably, yeah, another whole half to go. And today is Monday, so there's actually I just bag and boarded last Wednesday's haul, which was only last Wednesday's haul was light. I think it was maybe 6 or 7 issues of comics. Um, but this coming week, it looks like there's quite a bit of stuff coming up that I've been collecting. So that could be around 14 or 15 new comics there. Um, and then who knows what I'll grab in terms of back issues or trade paperbacks, or there might be another compendium out there. I'm waiting for that Injustice Compendium 2 to come out, and GI Joe Compendium 2. There's a lot of good stuff out there. There's so much good stuff. Like I can't buy all of it. I wish I could. And then there's the whole matter of time too. So I don't know, you gotta balance your priorities, I guess, something like that. Um, so yeah, so the next episode I should break out the box. Give you some idea. We went through all of these. Went through all of these. These we have this short box to go through, and I haven't even put these. I just These are just like all laying down in here, but yeah. See, here's a Deathlock that I picked up, book 3 or 4. I haven't seen this series before. These 4 books, I haven't seen this series before. This was cool. Love this cover. Love this painted artwork. If I remember correctly, I think the art inside is painted also. So yeah, we'll get into uh, we'll get into everything that's good in this short box here. Probably going to be another hour and 40 minute video. But I've been doing videos that are I've been doing videos that are shorter, trying to keep it around to the 20-minute mark or so, 23 minutes, less than 20 minutes, because I know you have a lot of videos to watch. I know I do. So, time is of the essence. But every once in a while, I do want to, do one of these longer form videos and just throw a ton of comics at you. That's what I was doing like when the channel first got started. So, things just kind of go through their own trend the way they're supposed to, I guess. But yeah, this is a good way to really just kind of get through all these comics and show them off, and hopefully give you some inspiration for stuff that you might want to take a look at, or if there's stuff that you've seen that you like or dislike that I've shown to you, drop a comment. You know, Comments help the channel. Uh, like, subscribe. Like, I rarely ever say that, but like and subscribe. That'll help the channel. My last video only got 12 views. That was me just talking about that War of the Worlds movie. My comics videos tend to get a little higher views, but like I think we average around 50, 60 views per episode. I'm not trying to monetize this. It's nowhere near that level. But it would be nice to get, to get some more views. I want to know what people think. Especially with also with my community posts too. While I can sometimes go a month in between videos, I try to keep up with, at least a couple of posts per week, um, to show you, that I am looking at stuff, I am reading stuff. There's a lot of stuff I'm reading that excites me, that I'm happy about, that I like. I really love what's happening in comics right now for the most part. I have a few grievances, um, most of which I've already referenced, things like the house art styles and just some of the I don't know some lack of oomph in some of the storytelling, but for the most part, I think comics right now are better than they were, um, even 3, 4 years ago, even a year ago. I think sort of this new what feels to me like this sort of new era of quality in the comics is probably started about a year ago. But I still think there's also a lot of room for improvement too, and I think we're heading in that direction. So I'm very optimistic about comic books, and I think that they are reaching new audiences, especially with these little, the manga tankobon size comics that Marvel and DC are putting out. I think is a fantastic idea. I'm not the target audience for those books, but yeah, there is a Batman Superman book that I picked up, um, because I didn't have those comics, but I didn't necessarily. It was just one of those titles. Like I didn't need to have it in an omnibus or full size format, but a little tankobon size. I was like, yeah, I can whip through that, in about an hour or so, and get caught up on those comics. But for younger people, who are kind of used to that manga format, yeah, that style is great. That's what I think I talked about this 2 or 3 years ago. It would be kind of cool if Marvel and DC and Image too, I don't want to leave the indies out of this, if maybe they just sort of did like these sort of smaller version of these compendiums, but cranked them out like once a week, maybe even, for some of these titles, and price them lower. But, if I can get, 5 or 6 comics, um, monthly or weekly or bi-weekly, at a 7.99 price tag, and it's 300 or 400 pages, like, for someone who's just getting into comics and who's like, just like in high school or something, or you're cutting yards or doing online marketing or whatever it is teenagers do for money these days, like that's a perfect format for me. Like, if I'm not going to pay for the weeklies, because your weekly comics, that you buy every Wednesday, or I guess I should say monthly, but every Wednesday you're buying, anywhere from 3 to 17 different comics, depending on what you're collecting. Those are going from anywhere from 3.99 to 7.99. Some of them are even 8.99. Like some of those Berserker books, from Boom Studios, like are like 8.99 an issue. And that there are more expensive hobbies, yes, but that is one of my, I am up there as one of those people. It's like, yeah, the prices are crazy right now in comics. Um, but that's because I'm an old timer. I mean, I was buying comics when they were 35 cents when I started, and I saw them go up to 35, 50, 60, 75, a dollar, dollars when I pretty much kind of jumped off, not because of the price, but I had just gotten out of comics because I became an adult. And but now, yeah, I don't mind 3.99, but 5.99, 6.99, 7.99. I mean, if it's 7.99, it better be double sized at least. But for my money, really, if you're putting a 7.99 price tag on me, like give me 50 pages or 60, you know. So I know there's been some studies out there that say like the price of comics compared to the rate of inflation, like your average comic book should actually be like 2.99 now. That would be your 35-cent comic back in 1978. So, but it's there are no 2.99 comics. So yeah, that's a barrier to entry to me. Like all these comic book companies, like, oh, we got to get more readers. What you need to slash your prices, dude, 10 or 20%, and then you'll get more readers. You know, I mean, yeah, your margin might be thin, but yeah, I'm not your accountant, but there's a way to do it. If you could go and look at the consistent quality and sort of like rabidness of the fans for comics in the 70s, in the 80s, and especially the 90s. And yeah, you had the speculator boom in the 90s, but there was a reason for that. And the reason was is because there was some good stuff that was coming out at first that was getting people super excited. You remember in the 90s, like you didn't have the MCU, you didn't have DCEU, you didn't have all these properties that had the great special effects, you know. You had sort of the chintzy ones like the Fantastic Four Roger Corman movie, which was never slated for release. You didn't have the capability to really put these things on screen, like we have today. And so you didn't have that component of the marketing getting everybody excited about comics through the way of the movies. So you weren't bringing in that normie audience, and yet you had quadruple the size of monthly readers, for the norm at that point in time. And so you just, in general, the population segment as a whole, you had more people reading comics as a matter of, course. And when you're talking now today, like a big selling book is 140,000, like that's like the number one book. That was nothing. Like, if like Absolute Batman is selling 120, 140,000 and it's number one, for this month. Okay, in 1990, 92, 93, 140,000 people were reading some obscure black and white indie book. Like that was nothing, and, Marvel books, X-Men books, Avengers were hitting, 500,000, 600,000, a million in some cases. Like that, what was that Jim Lee X-Men book or Avengers book? Some of them were cracking a million copies sold. Could you imagine if you could sell a million copies of a comic book today? So to get audiences back to that size, I think you got to look at a combination of factors that need to be adjusted, and one of them is the price. Um, to me, I mean that's just business 101. If you want to bring in more audience, the first place you do it is lower your price. You know, I know a lot of companies don't want to hear that, but I'm sorry, that's your first best way to get people to buy your shit is to lower your price. So, I'm a working guy in his 50s and I'm complaining about the price. For some kid who's, again, working a part-time job at Chipotle or whatever, making 15, 16, even $20 an hour, going out every week and buying $100, $150 worth of comics, that's a tenuous proposition. That's difficult to do. That's a passionate level of collector, though. When I was a kid and I was buying comics, I was doing, cutting yards for 25 bucks a yard, in the 99-degree Florida heat. God, I sound like an old man now. And so, and I had to go mow uphill both ways. But I'll be damned, man. 25 bucks could buy you a freaking stack of 50-cent comics. Okay. So that was the buying power that I had back then, you know. So I made more money than there were comics for me to buy, There were a number of comics and this is at the beginning of the direct market explosion. So I was already buying comics off the newsstand at the grocery store and the 7-Eleven. And then I was buying comics, at the direct market when the comic shops started popping up. So First Comics, Pacific Comics, Eclipse Comics, I was starting to buy those. Malibu Comics, I was starting to buy those. And those were, at that point, they were hitting the dollar price point. But I was like, whatever, man. I made 50 bucks this Saturday, mowing old man Johnson's yard, you know, and old lady Sally's yard in the neighborhood, and then jumping in the pool afterwards, and then going up to the 7-Eleven, getting whatever comics off the newsstand there I wanted. Then my dad would drive me to the comic shop, and and I still had money left over. I probably only spent 15, 18 a week on comics, and I still had money out of my 25 or $50 stash, of earnings from that week. So, you know, which was would be left over for like buying issues of Starlog or comics scene, which was published by Starlog. So, I don't even have that kind of buying power today. Like if I want to buy a copy of Back Issue or Jack Kirby Collector, I mean those are $10 a pop. Yeah. Um, and those are good magazines. Like I want to buy those every month, So so yeah, there's definitely something to that concept. Like your buying power today is for comics is not what it was, back in my day, when I was a kid. It just isn't. And it should be. It should be. You want to move more units, lower your price, you know? So I think that all of these books could stand a 10% price cut at least, and then you'd probably start seeing more volume moving. And when you see more volume moving, if you have a good story, now you have an asymmetric, expansion of your interest, because that's how I got started. I'd pick up an issue in Avengers, but there'd be Stan Lee. Oh, so and so happened back in Hulk issue number 151. Oh, damn, I need to go get Hulk 151. Oh, remember this happened in Spider-Man issue, 231. Or remember way back in issue number 18 of the Avengers, this villain did this. Oh, I got to go find that back issue. Then, I want to get that whole run. So you have this asymmetric expansion of your interest in comics because the stories reference all of these other different comic stories. But I got it for, a fair price. But now I'm gonna do things to make sure I can get those other issues. I'm gonna pick up some overtime at work. I'm gonna cut some extra yards. I'm gonna drive for Uber to make some comic book money, like whatever I need to do. Because now you got me hooked. I'm a passionate fan now. And so I'm gonna do what I need to do to raise that money to get those extra issues, even the back issues, and that's good for your local comic shop. But maybe not. Maybe I'm gonna go buy the epic paperback editions, the collected editions. So but there again, that benefits DC. It benefits Marvel. So that's money that's going into their pocket as well for buying those books. So just lower your prices, dudes, by 10%. That's all I'm asking. I think you'd be doing everybody a favor, and I think you'd start seeing some sales go up. And with that, I'll leave you guys till the next one. Thanks for indulging my soapbox and my comics. Until then, stay geek.